Super excited for this one. We've got Hamid, Habib and Kenji, Lloyd, and I'll let them introduce themselves, but this is going to be a really cool session. And packed full of video assets, I think, right?
Yeah!
Exactly. Well, without further ado, I'll let you introduce yourselves and please put your hands together.
Thank you very much. We've got about 10 minutes of presenting around how film and game collided to create a hugely successful campaign for the horror film Talk To Me. To introduce ourselves very quickly.
So I'm Kenji Lloyd. I work for a company called Touted, which is an independent film distributor, production company, and sales agent.
And I'm Hamid. I am Deputy MD of Havas Entertainment, which is a very culture-first media agency.
Yes. So as Hamid mentioned, this summer we released a horror film called Talk To Me, which is very much like a young skewing 18 to 30 kind of horror film. Basic kind of concept is that there hadn't been anything like it quite like it recently. Basic concept is there's a hand, and a group of teenagers find this kind of possessed hand, hold the hand, and you can talk to the dead. Obviously, it's a horror film, kids do stupid things, but the idea is it kind of gives you a natural high. So
true story.
It is based on a true story, and the other hand is out there somewhere. But it kind of gives you a natural high, and you can kind of talk to the dead whilst you're in there. Obviously, things don't go too well. But yes, we were releasing in the summer, July 28th. We picked it up earlier or kind of late last year, and knew that we kind of wanted to release it in the summer kind of blockbuster period. Didn't quite know when, but in that kind of period. And then we dated it for a week later after Barbie and Oppenheimer, basically. Kind of earlier in the year when we were picking that date, nobody really knew exactly what that kind of phenomenon was going to be. Nobody, like, the kind of like head-to-head, yes, but a film that was going to make £100 million in the UK and £50 million for like Christopher Nolan's biggest film ever. Barbie, absolutely amazing, incredible phenomenon. Nobody could have predicted that. So in hindsight, it might not have been the best date, but it felt like a great date at the time. And actually, to be fair, in hindsight, it was the perfect date because everybody else kind of left us alone for that week after, and we were the only new film out, which was absolutely amazing. So we knew that in that kind of really crowded environment with these two very buzzy, very busy films, that we're going to go for kind of a very massive saturation campaign. Barbie spent, I mean, nobody knows what they spent, but probably upwards of $150 million around the world. How can a small indie horror film cut through? So that was the challenge, and we thought they're going to be owning so many different formats, but the one space that they wouldn't own and they wouldn't kind of really invest in was gaming, which led us to talk to our brilliant media agency.
So forgive me one slide of just talking about our agency ethos, which is we really believe with culture clients, we preach this sort of virtue of impact over reach. You want to be more interesting, like give away a little bit of that reach to be more shared, more talked about. And in a world when you're up against Barbenheimer, you need to be getting yourself more shared, more talked about, driving a little bit more attention. It wasn't a huge leap for us to go from there are a multitude of fans of horror films who are also fans of horror games and vice versa. Resident Evil's been made into the game. Those are horror films have been made into games the other way around. One of the stats here, 45% of gamers overlap with horror film, like horror gamers overlap with horror films. Now, some of you might look at that and go, God, that's just not as high as I want it to be. I want to be looking at numbers above the 50s, 60s, 70s. But the point is, this group of people are highly engaged. They're talking about it. They're living and breathing in those ecosystems around both the gaming and the horror franchise. They will talk about stuff if we find a way to get them on board. And that's exactly what we did. We took the game and we recreated it with a partner called Livewire in Fortnite. So you could literally shake or virtually shake the hand, you could live the horror, you could experience that fear firsthand. But we did not stop there. And for those of you who were here yesterday, I talked about how gaming can be the whole ecosystem of everything we did. So of course, there was traditional media in there, but that traditional media, the posters, we bought, the trailers we delivered were very much within the gaming environments when people are paying more attention. They're not walking down the street with their face in their phones and there's posters out there. They're playing games where they're actually looking at this stuff in the background. We embellished that with a whole load of gaming creators with content that was native to their platform. So you, I'm sure, in this room will all be familiar with the concept of gamers playing games and talking through everything that they're doing, going on to their social platforms to tell their followers that they're going live. And it drove hundreds of thousands of viewers for us. Even the directors of the film, the two brothers, got involved in the action, loaded up onto their YouTube channel that they were playing the game. That alone got 438,000 views. So pretty spectacular numbers. But it went mental. Like, people were absolutely going crazy for this game, really, really enjoying it. It drove 3,000 hours of influencer-based views, 837,000 impressions from the creators that we worked with, 1.4 million plays of the game. And one of my favorite statistics, because the film is only an hour and a half long. The average play time of the game was 55 minutes, almost 2/3 of the film itself. And that created a whole load of spectacular results for us.
Yeah, and to this point, it really worked. You know, we had an independent film, we had an independent budget that was absolutely minuscule compared to what the studios were spending all around us, both before and after. And it really cuts through, you know, really strong numbers about people who wanted to see the film because they played the game, people who told their friends about the film because they played the game, and just a really great result, the kind of result that you just don't get if you have a traditional ad on a TV spot, or you see an ad on your phone. Maybe you might share it, your friend, maybe you might tag them in, but it's not quite the same as being able to play the actual immersive format of the film and really kind of tell your friends, sell that concept because you've done it yourself, and then you want to go and see the film on the big screen. And to that point, it was a financial success for us as well. So not only was it kind of, you know, experientially successful, it drove people to actually deliver on that intent to go and see the film. We kind of had hopes that it might hit something like £1 to £1.5 million at the box office, and it massively overperformed for us, hitting £2.5 million. And that in turn has led to the green lighting of the sequel. Like, very quickly after the film came out, it was a success here, it was a success in America, all over the world. It's just done so well that the directors are already kind of prepping talk to me. They've got this massive mythology around the hand, what's come before, what comes next. Those of you who've seen the film might kind of have a hint of that, about what comes next. And yeah, maybe in a few years we'll be here talking about what we did on the next campaign. Thank you.
So yeah, fire any questions away, and then I'll point at Kenji and make him answer all the difficult ones.
Great.
Hi, I'm Inaya from North Bank Talent Management, so I represent influencers and creators. Congrats on the campaign, it looks fantastic. I guess for me, looking at the statistics on how it did, what was kind of, how did you approach choosing the gaming influencers and I guess creators that you were working with when you were thinking about not only platforming the game, but also platforming the film? How did that kind of work?
Yeah, you can start. Maybe I'll jump in.
So we have a variety of tools that we use that will get us halfway there. Then we have, within the agency, we've got a specialist gaming team and a specialist film team as well. So when you combine what the tech is telling us on who's got decent reach, who's engaged in both of those, overlaid with what we know and what we've seen, and we'll be looking through the comments and how engaged are their users. So it's a blend of science and just human experience brought them together.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. I would also just say from our side, basically we were presented with a great list of influencers and just content creators and gamers really, who are our people. But we wanted a blend of people who had the reach, but also people who had small followings, but were so engaged, and we really we thought that they would get the game, get the film, And yeah, one of the people that we engaged, for example, they actually spent their own money buying their avatar an outfit that looked like the main character from the film, which is not anything that we kind of briefed them to do. It's just totally on the fly on their live stream, which is amazing.
We have another question ahead.
Oh, God. Well, don't worry, we'll get you next.
Cecilia Donez of Columbia University.
Thank you. Brilliant presentation, super excited. I'm curious, and this may be a naive question, could an extension of the consumer experience be to have embedded commerce as part of the kind of closing the loop on the purchase cycle?
As in, you can watch the film through the...
Or purchase
Hey.
tickets for in real life film situation?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm sure we could. It would have taken a partnership with a cinema chain to be looped in. So there's no reason we couldn't do that. We really didn't think about it, maybe, is the reason we didn't do that.
Well, you
But
could talk
yes,
about it.
next time, when we're here in 2 years' time talking about the next campaign, we'll definitely build that into it. Thank you very much. And you can come on stage with us as well.
And Cece will be on stage, actually, very shortly in the panel. There was another question over here. Ah, brilliant. I'm coming.
I'll tell you why we didn't do it now. I've had a minute to think. It's because something like this, and we were talking about this quite a lot, typically you'd want at least like 3-4 months to turn it around. We turned this around in about 6-7 weeks, which in a way is, yes, thank you very much. Feel free as crap. That would be a good round of applause. Which, you know, in some ways creates all kinds of complexity, but in others, it just means you are decision-making at pace and you've just got to go hard and fast at it. So there's upside to it. On behalf of all agencies in the room and clients, please don't regularly do that to them. But if we'd had more time, we'd have probably got into some of that stuff. I'm just trying to say we're not rubbish. We are. We think about all eventualities.
Okay, testing. There we go. So for Talk to Me 2, what would you do differently as opposed to what you did for this campaign? And also, would you speak to like studio execs and tell them, okay, if there's a Barbenheimer 2 or something like that, to avoid clashing in that schedule? Because I don't know if it had an effect on the overall like end goal that you had.
From an agent's perspective, maybe ask for more time between the briefing and the execution. But go on, you go, Kenji.
I think from our side, actually, I think Barbenheimer probably had a positive impact on us. There were so many people talking about those films, but also that so many people went to go see it over opening weekend. I think for a lot of people, it was probably their first film back since the pandemic, that they kind of got back into that cinema experience. And then we're looking for something different. We're actively seeking those different kind of experiences. But in terms of what we might do next, I think because the film is so successful and there's time for the sequel to be made, it might be something that we look to engage them at a production level and kind of build something either into the film or at least kind of get an idea of what's in the script that we can then perhaps take into a different game or a different environment next time.
I think it's always hard when you're the first film because you don't have the classic tropes of that movie to take out into the world. Their meaning, it's like Stranger Things, by the time it's on the 3rd season, can really play around with elements of the upside down that people know and stuff like that. Now that some people will know that film, for the next time, we'll be able to take some elements of that, get a little bit more clever, a little bit more experiential stuff in the real world, and then build it into the digital activity that we do as well. So I think it's just that opportunity to amplify even more that you were afforded when it's a sequel and you're building a franchise.
I think we have time for one more.
Thank you. Just a quick question about the Fortnite game development. Who took on the role of creating the idea of how it would exist in that world and then how it is then built? How is that shared amongst the different parties?
So we worked with a company called Livewire, who in turn worked with another games company who did the actual kind of day-to-day building of it. We had a number of briefing sessions. They actually, phenomenally, we weren't able to show them the film itself, so that everything that they did, they built from the trailer and our briefing sessions, which was amazing. But yes, that we went through rounds of, they'd send us, because it was a really crunched timeline, in an ideal world, we would have had more time. We would have got them to see the film. I think they were working out in Australia or New Zealand off the top of my head. But we would have got them to see the film. And in this time, they shared kind of sketches and still photography. Screen grabs is the word I was looking for. I think maybe 2 weeks before launch, and then a week before launch, we got the first kind of video game through. So it was a real leap into the unknown. But it was amazing work all around.
But I guess again, going back to what I was saying before, the upside of that is you have to make a decision. The downside of having time is it goes through 50 rounds of approvals, and by the time it comes out, you're like, it's not quite as good as it was 10 rounds of approvals ago. So, that meant it worked at pace. Everyone's like, that's great, let's go with it. Next thing.
That's great.
Brilliant. Please put your hands together for Hamid and Kenji.
Thank you very much.